At this point, it is universally clear that we love to hate Ubisoft. Well, on their defense, they have made few pretty great games in the past. One of their experimental games that was visually so pleasing that it was calming, but gameplay wise it was not so much. And the name of that game is Prince of Persia 2008, or the Prince of Persia Ghost of the Past. To be frank with you, in at least where I live, so little people has played this game that no one knows of its name. Especially when you say Prince of Persia 2008 or Prince of Persia Ghost of the Past, they do not understand a single thing about this game. So I want to break down something else. Not actually the cause of why it's unknown or something like that. What I want to break down is that why the graphics of this specific game is timeless. Because it was an experimental game and its visual coherence was so marvelous that it's still timeless. So the game Prince of Persia 2008, it's a unified visual thesis. Kind of, because the illustrative rendering, readable silhouettes, the fluid traversals conspire to make a timeless, legible, emotionally coherent world, which is why almost it is like its graphics is still untouched 15 years later. You have heard of tech aging, right? So in this game, what it achieves is illustrative coherence. The art direction, shaders, animation grammar, and encounter pacing are all tuned to an illustrative look inspired by Middle Eastern academic painting and fairy tale motifs. It clearly has achieved a motion and durability against the tech aging. Ubisoft's art direction explicitly balanced 1001 Nights imagery with Orientalist canvases of Jean-Leon Gérôme, then translated it into 3D through hand-drawn textures, outline shaders, and painterly relief that read like an illustrative stroke. Developers describe the pipeline as mapping detailed hand-drawn textures to geometry and applying shaders for stylized relief and shadow, plus the deliberate black outline to pop the characters from the background to improve gameplay readability at a glance. Press and technical coverage framed the game as cel-shaded illustrative reboot, an intentional step away from gritty realism towards an art style whose color, design, and inked encounters communicate from without relying on high-frequency detail. Academic and practitioner analysis of cel-shading illustrations of Prince of Persia 2000 say how outline and control palettes simulate 2D and 3D clarity, producing legible shapes and stable forms of motion, which became the core of Prince of Persia 2008's painted readability. Retrospectives emphasize how this illustrative approach resists visual obsolescence. By avoiding transient realism trends, the game hardly aged a day, riding strong silhouettes, saturated but disciplined patterns, and painterly textures that scale aesthetically beyond their native resolution. Players and critics alike point to the dreamlike fairy tale quality, with colossal verticality and distinct biome, as a style choice that reads as intentional meat rather than a failed simulation, further insulating it from the tech-bound aging. Art direction had to solve two parallel aesthetics: the desolate corrupted world and a warm restored one, effectively building two twin states per region with unique identity and material language to make purification visibly legible and emotionally rewarding. This demanded twice the work in textures and shaders per area, but the payoff is a transformation loop where the style communicates the state. Corruption's jagged blackness yields to luminescent warmth, turning progression into visible restoration. The outlines and painterly relief weren't superficial. They improved reading of gameplay, as Ubisoft's team put it, with counter-emphasis and controlled shading making Prince and Erika pop against ornate architecture during rapid traversal. Design symmetry highlights how navigation favors flow and clarity, destination visibility for giving input windows, and guidance call reduce red herrings so animation scenes stay unbroken, letting the art style serve motion rather than obscure it. Compared to earlier entries where scanning and puzzle-like phrasing halted motion, Prince of Persia 2008 pursues a flow grammar of movement that feels like an unspooling illustration. Erika's shape system eliminates failed state stutters, preserving momentum and visual rhythm. Critics of difficulty acknowledge this trait, but as a stylistic statement. It's coherent, the aesthetic of continuous line and sweep mirrored by continuous traversal, aligning mechanics with the illustrative look. The AI companion concept was day one pillar, building encounters and traversal around two character silhouette and riches composition, camera blocking, and on-frame contrast, further leveraging outlines and color separation for instant readability. By designing around the duo, staging can frame negative spaces and pause language that read like panel-to-panel beats in a comic, an approach consistent with the team's broader illustrative ambitions and the series' storytelling heritage. A heavily modified scimitar engine enabled expansive, less linear spaces whose airy verticality switch painted style, broad planes, rhythmic repetitive motifs, and long counters that reward an ink-wash look over noisy realism. One-on-one combat was chosen for dramatic focus, simplifies scene composition, allowing environment palettes and enemy forms to read clearly without clutter of hordes and counter, preserving the illustrative silhouette economy. Concept art archives and visual studies underscore saturated hues, high contrast edges, and motif repetition drawn from Middle Eastern visual vocabularies, filtered through a modern illustrative pipeline to avoid pasties while signaling place and meat. Criticism pieces liken its vibe to Okami and Wind Waker and others, but Prince of Persia's palette and architectural language retain distinct Persian myth identity rather than a generic toon shading. Even skeptics often concede the art's endurance. Community and press commentary coverage on visually stunning, holds up, and distinct, reflecting how illustrative style anchor memory through coherent, repetitive, legible motifs. A large stage cultural re-evaluation recognizes the game as an experiment whose art direction was unusually coherent for its time, helping it persist discourse despite mechanical controversies. Some argue forgiving flow and Erika's rescues reduces stakes, but as a craft choice, this protects the visual thesis, minimizing jarring fail loops that break the moving illustration, keeping the camera, pose, and counters continuously intact. Others cite tonal departure from earlier games, yet stylistic reboots routinely outlast tech trends when the look is deeply integrated with mechanics and camera language, as here with outline shaders and duo-centric staging. Prince of Persia 2008 is a stylistic masterpiece because it treats art direction as a system, illustrative shaders, silhouettes, palette, stage, and corruption and healing. Duo-based staging and flow-first traversal all reinforces each other to create a living illustration that still reads beautifully today. And with that, thank you for watching.